Do you remember when shopping in America felt alive? When it wasn't just a delivery notification, but an afternoon out. When families drove to the mall without rushing. When you already knew which store you'd visit for school clothes, a birthday gift, a new TV, or just to walk around and see what was new. There was a time when American life moved through physical places, big stores, bright aisles, food courts buzzing with noise, parking lots packed on weekends. Shopping wasn't a task you finished quickly. It was something you did together. Kids remember running ahead through sliding doors. Parents remember comparing prices in person. Teenagers remember hanging out without needing a reason. These stores weren't just where money was spent. They were where routines formed, where memories happened without anyone planning them. Back then, certain names felt permanent. You trusted them without thinking twice. If you needed something specific, you already knew exactly where to go. These stores anchored malls, neighborhoods, and entire towns. When one opened, everything around it came alive. And then, slowly, they disappeared. Not all at once, not with a big announcement, but quietly. One closure here, one empty storefront there, familiar signs taken down. In this video, we're going to look back at 10 American stores that once defined everyday life, shaped family routines, and felt untouchable in their prime. Before we begin, if you enjoy nostalgic deep dives into lost pieces of American life and culture, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's start with the first store, one that once sat at the very center of American shopping. Number 1. Sears. For a long time, Sears was the answer before the question was even finished. If a family needed a washing machine, tools for the garage, school clothes, or a new set of bed sheets, Sears was already in mind. You didn't search. You didn't compare 10 options online. You just went to Sears. Walking through a Sears felt familiar no matter which city you were in. Wide aisles, department signs hanging from the ceiling, appliances humming on display, tool sections that smelled faintly of metal and rubber. Parents trusted the brands without needing an explanation. Craftsman, Kenmore, Die Hard. Those names carried weight. For many families, Sears trips were routine. Kids wandered through clothing racks while parents talked to sales staff about warranties and payment plans. Some stores even felt like mini-malls on their own, big enough to spend hours inside without noticing the time pass. Sears didn't just sell products, it sold reassurance. The idea that if something broke, someone would fix it. If something wore out, there was a place to replace it. It felt steady, dependable, permanent. But as shopping habits changed, Sears didn't change with them. Stores stayed large and familiar, but the experience stopped evolving. Newer competitors felt faster, cheaper, and easier. The reasons people once chose Sears became habits rather than decisions. Slowly, trips became less frequent. Departments felt quieter. Some sections were blocked off. Eventually, entire floors closed before the store itself did. For many people, the strangest part wasn't seeing Sears disappear. It was realizing how long it had been since they last went without ever deciding to stop. Number 2. Kmart. A flashing blue light inside a Kmart meant everything stopped. Shoppers turned their carts. Kids followed the noise. Employees raised their voices over the speakers announcing a deal that felt urgent, even if you didn't know what it was yet. The blue light special wasn't just a discount, it was an event. Kmart stores felt busy in a way few places do anymore. Clothing racks pressed close together, seasonal aisles overflowing, toys, kitchenware, school supplies, all mixed under harsh white lights. It wasn't polished, but it felt alive. For many families, this was where everyday shopping happened. In smaller towns, Kmart wasn't just another option. It was the option. One of the biggest employers. One of the few places everyone visited regularly. Parents trusted it for affordable basics. Kids associated it with back-to-school trips and last-minute holiday shopping. What customers didn't see was how much work it took to keep that chaos running. Behind the scenes, shelves were harder to refill on time. Products didn't arrive when they were supposed to. Stores relied on promotions to create excitement while the systems underneath struggled to keep pace. From the outside, Kmart still looked full. Inside, things were starting to feel uneven. People kept coming out of habit. They just started leaving with fewer bags. Some Kmart locations stayed open for years after the excitement faded. Number 3. Toys R Us didn't feel like a store. It felt like permission. Permission to run ahead. Permission to stare. Permission to touch things you weren't allowed to touch anywhere else. The aisles felt impossibly tall, stacked with boxes of action figures, board games, bikes, and video games. Everything was loud, colorful, and overwhelming in the best way. Parents knew exactly where birthdays and holidays would start. You didn't wonder if Toys R Us had what your child wanted. You assumed it did. And if it didn't, you walked around until something else caught their eye. Trips there became rituals. Kids begged to go just to look. Parents tried to move quickly and failed. The store was designed to slow you down, to make choosing feel like part of the fun. Leaving without buying anything was rare. Toys R Us wasn't just selling toys. It was selling excitement, anticipation, the feeling that something special was about to happen. But that feeling depended on scale. Huge buildings, massive inventory, entire Entire seasons built around a few big shopping moments each year. When shopping started shifting toward convenience and price comparisons, that scale became harder to support. Parents still brought their kids, the aisles were still full, but fewer trips were planned around wandering, and more purchases happened elsewhere, faster and cheaper. The magic stayed visible long after the numbers underneath stopped working. For many families, the last visit didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like any other trip until one day it wasn't there anymore, and childhood lost one of its loudest places. Number 4. Blockbuster. Friday nights used to begin with a drive. Families pulled into a familiar parking lot already talking about what they wanted to watch. Inside, the smell of plastic cases and carpet hit first. Walls were lined with movies, new releases facing outward, older titles packed tightly behind them. People moved quickly, checking labels, hoping the film they wanted was still there. Choosing the movie was part of the night. Kids ran ahead to the family section. Teenagers drifted toward horror. Parents argued quietly over comedies or dramas. If the new release was gone, plans changed on the spot. Sometimes that frustration was half the fun. Blockbuster wasn't just about watching movies. It was about deciding together, holding the case, reading the back, negotiating one more rental. Even the late fees became part of the routine. Annoying but expected. The system only worked because everyone accepted it. You had to go there. You had to return it. You had to settle for what was available. For a long time that felt normal. Then watching movies stopped requiring effort. People started wanting instant access instead of trips. Fewer rules. No return dates. No disappointment when something was already gone. Blockbuster stores stayed open. Lights on. Shelves stocked. But visits grew shorter. Some customers walked in, scanned the wall, and left without renting anything. The ritual didn't end all at once. It just stopped being automatic. Number 5. RadioShack. Most visits to RadioShack started with something small not working. A charger went missing. A remote stopped responding. You needed a cable, a battery, or an adapter, and didn't want to wait days for delivery. RadioShack mattered because it was nearby, and because someone inside usually knew what you needed. The stores were narrow and packed with parts, drawers of connectors, racks of batteries, pegboards filled with cables most people couldn't name. You didn't browse for fun. You asked a question and got an answer. That knowledge was the real product. At its peak, RadioShack operated more than 7,000 stores in the United States, one of the densest retail footprints in the country. Founded in 1921, it had survived decades by serving everyday electronics needs long before big box tech stores existed. But consumer electronics changed. Devices became simpler, cables became standardized, batteries got cheaper, and were sold everywhere. Grocery stores, gas stations, online. The reasons people walked into RadioShack began disappearing. The company tried to pivot, stores filled with mobile phones and wireless plans. Sales staff were pushed to sell contracts instead of components. The layout stayed cramped, but the purpose shifted. Longtime customers came in looking for parts and found phones instead. By the mid-2010s, the pressure showed. RadioShack filed for bankruptcy in 2015, then again in 2017, closing thousands of locations. Familiar red signs vanished from malls and street corners. Number 6. Borders. Walking into a Borders felt different from walking into any other bookstore. The lighting was softer. The aisles were wide enough to slow you down. Chairs and couches were placed where most stores would never allow them. People sat reading entire chapters without being rushed. Coffee cups rested on tables between stacks of books. Staying was encouraged. Borders wasn't built for quick purchases. It was built for time. At its height, Borders operated more than 1,200 stores worldwide, with hundreds across the United States. It sold books, music, and movies, often under one massive roof. The stores were designed for discovery, handwritten staff recommendations, long genre sections, and listening stations where people sampled CDs before buying them. For students, writers, and casual readers, Borders became a second home. People met there without planning to buy anything immediately. Foot traffic was high. The stores always looked busy, but the business depended heavily on that physical space. Large stores meant high rent. Long visits didn't always turn into purchases. As online shopping grew, more customers treated Borders like a library or cafe, browsing in-store and buying elsewhere. Sales per square foot struggled to keep up with the size of the buildings. Borders also fell behind digitally. It outsourced online sales early instead of building its own system, losing valuable ground as buying habits shifted. While competitors adapted, Borders doubled down on physical expansion. In 2011, Borders filed for bankruptcy and closed all of its U.S. stores. Hundreds of large, quiet buildings were left behind almost overnight. Number 7. JC Penney. For a lot of American families, JC Penney was where normal shopping happened. Not luxury, not bargain chaos, just dependable. Parents went there for school clothes, couples bought towels, curtains, and cookware. Teenagers tried on jeans under fluorescent lights, while parents waited outside fitting rooms holding hangers. JC Penney stores felt orderly, clear sections, predictable layouts, prices that sat comfortably in the middle. You didn't feel rushed, and you didn't feel lost. For decades, that balance worked and employed hundreds of thousands of people. Many locations were mall anchors, pulling steady foot traffic and long-term customers who came back year after year out of habit. The problem wasn't that customers disappeared overnight. It was that expectations changed. Younger shoppers wanted trendier styles and faster turnover. Discount chains pushed prices lower. Online online retailers made browsing easier without stepping into a mall. JC Penney tried to respond, but the changes confused its core audience. In the early 2010s, pricing strategies were overhauled. Sales were removed, then brought back. Layouts changed. Brands disappeared. Longtime customers walked in and felt unfamiliar with a store they'd trusted for years. Debt added pressure. Large stores were expensive to maintain, and mall traffic was already declining. By 2020, JC Penney filed for bankruptcy, closing hundreds of locations. Some stores still exist today, but many malls remember the moment JC Penney went dark. Number 8. Circuit City. Buying electronics used to feel like a decision you needed help with. At Circuit City, customers didn't just grab a TV and leave. They stood in long aisles comparing screens, sound systems, and boxes filled with cables they barely understood. Sales associates explained differences, demonstrated features, and walked people through options that felt expensive and unfamiliar. The stores were big and unmistakable. Red signage, long rows of televisions all playing the same demo loop, stacks of boxed stereos, DVD players, and computers arranged like a warehouse you could walk through. It felt serious, like a place where you made important purchases. At its peak, Circuit City operated over 700 stores in the United States and was one of the country's largest consumer electronics retailers. For years, it competed directly with Best Buy and dominated many suburban markets, but the business depended heavily on knowledgeable staff. In 2007, Circuit City made a decision that quietly changed everything. Thousands of experienced sales employees were laid off and replaced with lower-paid workers. The move reduced costs, but it also removed the expertise customers relied on. At the same time, online retailers made price comparison effortless. Customers began using stores to look at products, then buying them cheaper elsewhere. Without strong in-store guidance, Circuit City lost its main advantage. By 2008, the company filed for bankruptcy. In 2009, all U.S. stores were closed. Number 9. Debenhams ask almost any family where they bought proper clothes, and Debenhams comes up fast. It was the place you went when the occasion mattered. A wedding, a job interview, a school coat that had to last more than one winter. You didn't go there for a single item. You went knowing you'd be there a while. Debenhams stores were big, busy, and layered. Makeup counters near the entrance, clothing spread across multiple floors, homeware upstairs, and usually a cafe hidden somewhere inside.